Hello, this is Livia Caudell, founder of Conscious Wealth Builders, and I'm here with Wendy Darling, and she is absolutely darling, so your last name is so fitting for who you are. It's incredible. And she's the founder of Miraculous Loving Institute. And we met here at this event that we're at, and
Yes.
I was like, just such a magnet to you. I was like, I don't know who you are, but I'm clear I have to meet you. And so I started inquiring about who you are, and that you just not only help people inside of intimate relationships, but businesses, and help people create more loving relationships.
Yeah.
That to me, and I was just sharing with you, I don't think that there's any, that's like the highest purpose you could live in life, is to spread love, and that's exactly what you're doing. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. And I love how you're describing it, because I am very biased. I think love is at the core of everything. For people that want success, I believe having an intimate relationship is so important. And I used to be a corporate executive. I used to be a management and organizational development consultant.
Yeah.
And at that time, because it's been a whole lot of years ago, my mentors were men. And I developed more of the masculine qualities of myself, and as a result I wasn't the best in a relationship.
I can so relate to that.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of the women that I work with, I help them not give up what they're doing, but lean more into their feminine qualities, not just in their personal life, but we're also seeing that those qualities are so needed in companies and organizations today, in business.
Yeah, big time. There's, and I talk about this conversation quite a bit because I have a very masculine, strong presence about me, and I haven't had a lot of successful, committed relationships. And I started really inquiring about that because I was like, I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life, So I started reading books on feminine, masculine energy.
Yeah.
And I was blown away because a lot of the traits that they were talking about, masculine energy, I possessed, And so it caused, there's a big impact. So I've had to kind of start being more of my feminine, soft nature. And so I think it's an amazing, important thing, especially nowadays where there's a lot of women who feel like they have to be strong and independent and go for their dreams, but they don't have to do it in such a masculine energy, right?
Well, what I like to talk about and support women in, now I'm not excluding men,
Sure.
is for women to be powerfully successful, but powerfully feminine. And I think that it's a really important distinction, and we're really wired for that. And it's just that so many of us got trained to develop more of our masculine qualities. And that's not all bad, but you want to be authentic.
Sure.
And that's the place that I try to get people to more than anything. Who are you? And what's gotten in the way of you just being you? So many people invest tons of hours and dollars they're searching for who they are. And so what I try to do is just kind of remove the interference that's gotten in the way. And when people live in harmony with themselves authentically, it's sweet.
Oh, I know. It's just, you're a living example of that. Just being in your space is so refreshing and so nice. It's peaceful. It's like, okay, I can be me because you're being you. There's no fakeness. It's open authenticity.
Yeah, and I wasn't like this all the time. Like I
Sure.
said, I was a type A, go get 'em. One of my cousins teases me. He says, oh my gosh, if you would get any more laid back, you would just be, I always get horizontal and vertical confused. I'd be lying
Horizontal,
down.
yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and so, but that's not to say that you give all your qualities up. It's really finding what's best within you.
Sure.
And I think in relationships, that becomes key. There's a book that's very well known, The 5 Love Languages. And I think it's a wonderful inventory. It helps people realize that we speak different languages of love.
Yes, we do.
I'm working with a couple right now, and one, their love languages are just so polar opposite.
Yeah.
The husband wants words of affirmation and physical touch.
Sure.
She is acts of service and quality time. And so, he's he is giving her what she wants him to be giving him. And unfortunately, they're like ships passing in the night.
Interesting.
So
yeah.
just starting to become aware and change that is really, easy tweaks.
Wow, that's so amazing. Interesting. I've been in the inquiry about love languages, and so that's cool because like you're the second person that's talked about that. So there's definitely something there. I need to do a little bit of studying.
Yeah.
But going back to the you were talking about we're trained a particular way. So I know, like when I was little, there was a lot of there's a lot of things between my parents. So I know I grew up with like love is pain and I don't want a relationship because you're just going to get hurt, and so when you're talking about training, can you talk more about that? Like we're trained to be feminine, masculine.
Yeah, we define love by our very early childhood experiences. So if you had a parent that was critical, that's how you naturally define love. Doesn't mean it's the kind of love you really want.
Sure.
But what we now know with how the mind works and how that's all tied to our emotions and energetically, it impacts the choices that you make. And what's tricky about this, it's kind of like, why do I keep attracting the same kind of person?
Sure. Yeah.
It's because what we now know, we're literally telegraphing, this is who I am, this is what love is, and we bring into our lives that which matches it. Mm-hmm. Well, the good news is people like me helps to unravel that and helps you redefine who you are and what love really is, so that you can literally attract the love of your life that will be a relationship that serves you, supports you, and nourishes you. So that, quite honestly, you can go out and have even more impact and influence and making your mark in the world.
Wow, that's so powerful. That's amazing. So that's interesting. So I was just sharing with you about, my life's journey and what had this summit come about. And so at a young age, I had a glimpse of my purpose.
Yeah.
But I was sharing with you, like my parents used to fuss, fight, and argue about finances a lot. So
Very
I remember
common.
making a very conscious decision. I'm going to do whatever it takes to never be broke. So I spent the majority of my young adult life chasing money. Because it was like, okay, I'm going to go make a ton of money and then I'll get back to that purpose. And so, but I wasn't aware that was really that conversation I created was running the show. It was like kind of in the background. I didn't know that I didn't know. So after doing some personal development work, I got clear on that. But it wasn't until this year that I said, you know what, enough. Like I am so supported. The universe is going to take care of me. And I just need to go and live my true authentic purpose. And then now I'm creating a business around that. So I'm learning from some of the best in the world, including yourself, And so what would you say, I guess, because it's about loving yourself and trusting yourself that you can do it. Because I think that was one of the biggest challenges for me.
Yeah, for me too.
Yeah.
I didn't get this smart because everything was all toasty and beautiful. I mean, I did have a decent childhood, but there were some really rough spots. I was abused as a child.
Yeah.
I didn't know my personal worth or value. I didn't even know who I was.
Sure.
Which is probably why I help people find their purpose. I help people really get in the groove of their life because it took me so many years to figure all of that out.
Sure.
And so I think it's just really, it's important, as you said, to really reach inside of you. And I think when you talk about purpose, there are two different ways, I think, that are real easy to start tapping into that. And I don't believe there is only one purpose for anybody.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and I think
feel like it evolves and grows over time too.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
And I think people get tripped up. They hold themselves back because it's like, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
But there are clues, and there are two aspects of clues. One could be, what do you really love? What has meaning for you? What lights you up? We happen to be in Southern California right now, just looking out at the ocean. What is it that really makes your heart sing? And that can be clues in that direction. For many of us, it's what struggles have you had to overcome?
Yeah.
What was really something that ripped your heart out, challenged you, and or is there something about our world that deeply disturbs you? You know, as I mentioned, I was abused as a small child. So when I'm in a grocery store and I see a parent treating their child a certain way, it literally takes every bit of effort on my part not to intervene.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Me
and
too.
So I think those two extremes help to channel you, to direct you in the direction where you can best serve, because that's what it's all about. I believe, my first business was called Thumbprints International, because I believe, just like your thumbprint, everybody is unique. There's nobody else like you. And part of our job is to discover what is that uniqueness, what are your qualities, what are your gifts, and cultivate them in a way that really make a difference.
Beautiful.
And what's interesting, though, is that most people don't know what their gifts are.
Yes.
They don't, because a lot of times when you have a gift, it's such a natural part of who you are that you don't realize it's anything special.
Sure.
I remember the first time a graduate school professor told me, God, I was in a practicum, and I begged to work with this professor, begged. And meanwhile, but he was known for putting people on the hot seat.
Yeah.
And I was watching people, one by one. I finally went to him and I said, when are you going to put me on the hot seat? I can't, let's do it. Let's get it over with. It was so painful waiting.
Sure.
And he just looked at me very calmly and he said, well, why would I put you on the hot seat?
Yeah.
And I said, well, because you've put everybody else on the hot seat. And he said, let me tell you a couple of things.
Yeah.
And he said, first of all, I put people on the hot seat who resist looking at what's going on, what they're doing. He said, you're really great at that. And I'm like, oh, kind of sitting a little bit taller.
Thank you.
And he said, plus, you're an exquisite diagnostician.
Ooh. Ooh.
And I just looked at him. And, we probably said some other things, and I remember saying, you could have told me this before. I could have really enjoyed this experience a lot more. But he was, the purpose of me telling this, he was one of the first people that ever told me what I was good at. I didn't know that I was doing something different than the next person.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm not saying it just because of me, but for those of you that are wondering, what you might be good at, what's special about you, ask people in your life.
Yeah.
Because they see it all the time. I was always the person people came to when they had a problem. Even when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Well, guess what I kind of do now? It was already in my DNA.
Wow. Yeah. So that's so amazing. It's such a beautiful journey that life has taken you through. And like you said, it's always ever evolving. But that's awesome. So for people who really want to discover their purpose, maybe what would you say for them to do? Maybe go ask someone, hey, what are the gifts you see in me? Do you think that?
That definitely. Just like I said, I think, first of all, what really hurts your heart? Where have you personally been hurt? Where have you had a struggle? Because I think that leaves clues. As I mentioned, I had a rough beginning. I also had a very, very serious accident in 1990.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What happened?
I was working for a Fortune 100 company, consulting, and I lived in Texas. I was at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. I was very sick. And I went outside to get some fresh air, and I passed out, and I fell over a ramp, and I fell over 25 feet.
Wow. So it's like it's a gift that you're here.
Yeah.
Blessing. Wow.
Yeah. So it was a very long road. I had multiple surgeries to save my leg. I didn't know for about almost a year if I would ever walk again. Obviously, I do.
Yeah.
I had some other injuries, but I was also later diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury, and that took a really long time. While I was in the hospital, my former husband ended our marriage.
Wow.
And there's just a lot of other pieces. He was awarded full custody of our very young child at that time. And I was just starting to wake up more to my spirituality. I was just in the very early phases of it. And I remember thinking to myself, what choices have I made that I got myself right here? And what do I have to do different? You know, where did I get off track? And it started a much deeper inner exploration, because just like what you were saying, I was chasing the dollar.
Yeah.
I was flying all over the United States. I was consulting with big companies.
Yeah.
My family life was neglected. And, you know, I had gotten away from me. And when, you know, there's only, this is not a, you know, there's only so much Oprah a person can watch.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not meant to be. I love her. I
Yeah.
don't want to give the wrong impression, but I had a lot of time to reflect and to sort things out. And quite honestly, I said a prayer back then. I said, God, you help me dig out of this hole and find a way for people to change easier. I promise I will pay it forward, because nobody should have to suffer like this. And my wish got granted. As I was recovering, now I was a very traditional woman. I was starting to be able to see energy. My healing gifts started coming through, and cultivated the processes that I use with my clients and train other practitioners in, started to be cultivated. So even though I wish it could have happened differently, the gift that I can provide now, I've worked with people who have been abused, and in hours it's done.
Incredible.
And I've seen so many beautiful transformations. People that have wanted love suddenly in a matter of weeks attract the love of their life.
Incredible.
Or relationships that do 180s, companies whose profits double and triple in a short period of time.
Amazing.
So in that sense, I'm grateful.
That's incredible. Yeah, I always like to say that transformation happens in a moment. And that's why those results happen so quickly. Because there's things that perhaps we don't know that we don't know. And when someone like you, who can really just dig that out, it sounds like you dig it out, and you can bring love to it and make that shift for someone.
Yeah.
That's a tremendous gift.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I was very self-conscious about that for a long time, because I was not that person. And finally,
so owning your space. We just had a gentleman I just interviewed, and he said that, owning your space. Because, you know, I'm starting to own, you know, me interviewing, but it's been practice, and now I'm like starting to own it, you know? I'm like, yeah, I'm the interviewer, you know?
that's right.
So I'm with you on that. So it's like, I think that's another thing too. I wasn't owning my gifts. Like I was like, people would say, you got a great bubbly personality, you would be great TV personality, but I never went for it because I didn't own it. So that's such a beautiful thing you're saying.
Yeah, I was very uncomfortable. I've always been a humble person. I've always been somewhat modest. And it was like, who am I to suddenly say, you know, I can really help you with that.
And then charging money for it, because that's another thing too, is like, sometimes people get like, I don't want to charge money for the services, and they don't have the self-worth, the love, like, hey, no, this is my business, I help people.
That's right.
So I'd love for you to speak on that too.
Oh, I'll tell you, it's very easy for me to ask for what I believe is valuable.
Sure.
You know, I've known people that have been, I have to be careful what I say. I've known people that have been in traditional therapy, and there's a place for that.
Sure.
So I am not ditzing that in any way. But I overheard a conversation not too long ago, somebody that had been in therapy for like 4+ years.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, really? You know, people hardly work with me like maybe 3 months. Some people continue to work for me periodically just because their lives are just growing and they want to make sure they stay clear and they're doing really well.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you know, I think that the more we help people and we get compensated for that, it makes my life better. I'm able to be more, I'm able to do more with that money, because it's not just for me. You know, in fact, it's like I want more of that because then I can have even greater impact in the areas where it's not my expertise, but I can help this group over here.
Yeah.
You know, I love working with young entrepreneurs. I love working with kids. Yeah. And they're so fast to work with.
They are. Kids get things so quick, yeah.
And because so many kids today are not doing as well, it's just really one of my passions. You know, I don't ask for money for that when I go into schools or I speak on stages for youth leadership conferences. You know, I just want to be there to help shorten their learning curve so that their foundation is stronger for their life, because we need that.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, because there's going to be a lot of parents obviously watching this online summit. So what are some things that you teach the kids? I'd love to hear that.
Well, first of all, I have different processes, and depending where I am, you know, if I'm just speaking to a whole room of kids, it's one thing. But it's part what we're talking about. What do you love? What has meaning for you? Because that's important. You know, parents, and I'm a mom, I'm a grandma too, but, you know, I'm a mom. And I remember that because nobody really did that for me. Yeah. You know, really watch what your child is interested in. My son loved video games. I can remember our one argument that we used to have was what his father bought him this video game, and he became so addicted to it. However, one day I went into his room and he said, look at this. And he had made a movie of this game, put it to different music, changed my whole experience of the game. And for quite a while, my son was in film and media and was doing all of that. Yeah. And now he's doing something a little differently. So you want to look. Now that was hard because I didn't want him doing that.
Yeah,
but I didn't realize. And there's balance to all of that.
Of course.
So first of all, really notice what your child's interested in. And notice what they're interested in, not what you want for your child. Yeah. Because that's a real common error that parents make. Yeah. You know, we all want better for our children than what we had. And so some parents, you know, overcompensate a little bit in that way. So to try to pull out, you know, and let your child know where you're proud of them and what's good about them and what you want for them, and help them dream and start to create a future for them. Because what we now know in the personal growth industry is it's not so much looking back and what you have to change or fix. We now know that when you create a future and you start really dreaming that, the neural pathways in the brain function differently. And with my methodology, also, when you do that, using my methodology, anything that's interfering from the past also gets reworked. So, because early in my career, it was always, let's find it and fix it mentality. So you always kept feeling like something was wrong. What do we have to find? What do we have to fix? So instead, we can point forward. So if you can help your child start creating their future, because children are very present in the now, which is good. Yeah. But it's even better if you can start, you know, even when they're young, you know, the question, so what do you think you want to be when you grow up? You know, it's just, it's simple things like that. But to build confidence, that's core.
That's beautiful. And you know what, even doing that, I get a sense that a child could even discover their purpose through cultivating that at a much younger age, instead of like, you know, struggling, right? Because I feel like the majority, a lot of us just kind of struggle to find, what is my purpose? Why am I on this planet? But if you're nurturing your child and telling them, you know, how great they are, then I feel like they're going to really most likely step into that, I feel.
Yeah, much easier. And it's just so important because they're little sponges. They're taking in so much. They're taking in our energy, they're taking in the good stuff, and they're taking in the not so good stuff. And they watch everything. Yeah.
My gosh, you're so incredible, amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So, getting back to the money conversation, because
Yes.
it's the prosperity, creating prosperity in a sustainable business. So, was there at any point that you were, I know you said that it was a challenge for you to kind of step into your power, right? But was there a point where it was kind of like challenging to ask people, to charge for your services? And so how did you overcome that? Because obviously there's a lot of people, I can tell you for me, big time, like I have a certification in yoga, I've got a certification in stress management, and I never charged for those services because I had that fear of like, I can't charge people to make a difference for them. So then that's why I focused on real estate and investments and business, like real business where it's just like kind of, it's just very straight. It's just like, hey, we're doing a business transaction. It's to make money, and that's it, clean, right? But I feel, and I get this a lot from people who are healers, is that they have a challenge asking for money and when to serve, when to give back. And I would love to hear from you about your.
It was a journey for me.
Sure.
First of all, I found when I just gifted different sessions, they weren't as invested in the results. And quite honestly, I'm only interested in working with people that are committed. There have been different times in my life where I barely had 2 nickels to rub together, but I'll tell you, I found that money to go to that program, or I found the money. When it's important enough, you make it work.
Yeah.
And if it's not important to them, they're not my clients. So actually, I think it's a disservice to not charge.
Yes.
I have worked with people that were in very poor, challenging situations. I didn't charge my regular fee, but we worked something out that was a stretch for them. If it was $10 because they thought they could only afford $7, that's what we did.
Yep.
So it was just something that pushed them further in their investment. And I don't do that very often, but I'm also pretty intuitive.
Sure.
And I know when it will serve somebody. I will know when to gift somebody something.
Yeah.
But I believe it's a disservice to both of you when you don't charge.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. And I can actually attest to that. Anytime at events that I've worked, giving people free gifts, it's like, you don't ever look at the free gift. You just put it on your shelf and you don't do anything with that. I know friends of mine who have said, hey, yeah, I'll help you with this. I'll do it for free. Never take them up on it because, there's no value. There's no stake in the game for me. And I noticed that about me. I could probably go to my mom and my sister, they're very intuitive, but no, I choose to go to psychic mediums and pay a fee. Although when I talk to them, I'm like, wow.
There could be other reasons for not
sure.
doing
But
it,
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I totally align with that.
Yeah, and I think when we don't value ourselves and what we are offering, it diminishes even what you're offering another person.
Yes.
So I think it's important. Maybe the first time I charged, my higher level fee, it was like, it didn't come out of my mouth quite as easily.
Sure.
And it was like, oh gosh, what are they going to say?
Yes.
But they were like, okay. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of just doing
it, and then eventually it just becomes like,
Yeah.
okay, no, this is
It's just
this is
like
who I am,
riding a
this is my
bicycle.
Yep.
And I also have a lot of faith that I attract the right kind of person who I can best serve.
Yeah.
And I think when we sit and stand for that, I know I'm not for everybody.
Sure.
And my intention, my prayer is, God, let me just connect with the people who I can best serve and support.
That's beautiful.
And so I trust that. And I trust that, people will pay my fees. And so...
Well, talking about relationships,
Yes.
relationship with money, that's the conversation we're having right now. It's to have a healthy, loving conversation about money. So I know that some people say money's the root of all evil and, people with money are greedy, this and that. There's just so much BS.
But that's
about
part
that.
of a lot of people's conditioning.
Yeah, it is.
Which is
The
why
training.
we have to unravel that.
Yes.
And my methodology does that.
Yeah, so you
we-
do work with business people. So
Oh,
is
yeah.
this something you work with a lot? Is the money blocks?
Yeah, well, It depends.
On the client and
That's
what they
right.
need.
But a lot of times, yes.
Yeah.
It may not come up as money. I have a unique system that I call your entry point. So you may come to me for business reasons,
Sure.
but we may focus on love. And that
Because
has
it's all
happened more.
because it's all interconnected, you know.
But
Yeah.
if we focus on this, the dominoes,
Sure.
just fall over so much easier. So yes, there are people that, many of us, that reach a certain level of success,
Sure.
and yet it's like hitting that glass ceiling, and it's like, how come I get here and then something happens and it goes, well, that tells us
Sure.
that there's an inner belief that's impacting your self-worth. And so we raise that up. So what happens is, for example, it's not uncommon that clients that work with me double and triple their income in the first 2 or 3 months after working with me.
It's incredible.
Because
Amazing.
I call them mischief makers. They're just in there going, no, I don't think that, we have to keep it here.
Yeah.
And no. And that's why it gets frustrating for a lot of people, because it's like you have this drive within you, but at the same time, there's this opposing force internally that's saying, no, we don't really deserve that.
Yeah. No, and that's really, for me, it was like with my higher purpose, it was like, I don't deserve to live an extraordinary life. Like, that would just be amazing. It can't be that easy. I can't just love what I do and make money. Although I heard it, people like, oh, do what you love, and I see other people doing it. I didn't really feel that. I mean, it took a long time. I've done a lot of personal development work, but it really took an act of me saying, enough is enough. And sometimes you got to get to that point too.
Absolutely.
I was like, I'm tired of not feeling satisfied. I'm tired of not feeling fulfilled in my careers. Like, I'm just going for it. I'm just going to make it happen, and I'm worthy. And the more that I'm doing it, the more that I'm realizing that I am worthy, and you're validating that. And that's what it is. It's about feeling worthy and loving yourself, which is just echoing everything you're saying.
It goes back to what I talked about earlier about your thumbprint. The world needs what you and only you can offer.
Beautiful.
Just like me, you're not meant to serve the world in its entirety.
Yes.
To what extent of the world you will impact, I was given a magic wand, but not a crystal ball. But the point is to have faith that you were designed, you were created for a reason and purpose, unlike anybody else. And so when you follow your heart and you do what you love and what you believe in, it makes such a difference.
Yes.
And the world really needs what you and only you can offer.
That's so
and you have to remember that. We all have to remember that.
Yeah.
I still have my moments where it's like, oh my gosh, what's next?
Yeah.
And then, that's just an old silly little thought. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. We're going on to other things now.
That's beautiful that you say that, because the little voice in our heads never goes away, does it? Even where you're at.
But it becomes minimal.
Minimal.
Significantly so. When I had my accident, it was my mother that actually suggested that I learn how to meditate. And at that time in my life, quieting my mind was a complete oxymoron. I mean, there was so much activity there.
Yeah.
Now, I almost have to jumpstart it. So because of my methodology, what the gifts that I've been given, it's very quiet in here. And it's really
That's refreshing to know.
Oh.
That is really refreshing
Well,
to know.
as I mentioned, years ago when I had my accident, it was so traumatic. And when I first started to receive my healing gift, and I had that moment where I embraced it, it just started to quiet down. And it was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It
Wow.
was such a relief.
Beautiful.
I had no idea at that time what it really was, what I would eventually be able to do.
That's incredible.
I was just so friggin' happy that this got quiet. Yeah, so it really helps, and it helps a lot with people who are wanting to get more into their heart and minimize the chatter of the mind, because when we can quiet the mind and our lives. We live in a very noisy world.
Yeah,
Um,
I do.
The voice that lives within your heart is really where the wisdom lives. And when you feel it or hear it or know it, that's gold.
Yeah,
We don't need anything else.
that's it. Enough said. I think we've just figured it out. No, thank you so much for your love, your wisdom, for the difference that you're making for everyone in your life, your clients. It really is truly an honor to know you. And thank you for doing this interview and sharing your wisdom with the world so generously.
You
I
are
appreciate
so
that.
welcome. I'm glad we have met and have had this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you. And is there any free gift or anything that you could give to the viewers so they can learn more about you?
Sure. You can go to my website, wendydarling.com. I have an audio, a free audio that you can have access to, and I think there's different things on YouTube.
Beautiful.
But yeah, and if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So we're going to post the link below, so make sure you click that. Check out this amazing woman. I'm definitely going to be working with you, so we'll be talking about that here momentarily. Thanks so much for tuning in to Conscious Wealth Builders Online Summit. We've got many more interviews coming to you, so thanks for tuning in.